And we are live. Welcome to the Two Turtle Tom Show every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. Matthew and I go live to talk turtles and tortoises and their care. Some nights we have a guest on, but tonight we are answering your turtle and tortoise questions. We have a lot of great questions, and join us. Welcome. Put your question in the chat. So let's see who we've got here. Sam is with us.
Hey, Sam.
Of Sota's Reptiles.
Sota's Reptiles.
Check Sam out on YouTube.
Sam's a real good dude.
Give his channel some love. He's making a video. Go ahead.
I was going to say aloha, Mike. I saw the aloha. I love the aloha.
Oh, wow. You saw that before I did. Interesting. Also, Phil Simpson.
It's kindred spirit.
Seth Hurst of Hurst Reptiles is joining.
Hey, Seth.
Seth is a cage maker, and Seth was recently on Sean McZoo's Reptile Show Reporter podcast. So, Seth, welcome. Steven is with us. Steven out in California, hope all is well and you're not getting too much rain. And, I hope you're staying warm because it's like 60 there. So
I don't feel bad for 60 degrees. Heck, my turtles are fine in 60 degrees.
They need sweatshirts.
Oh, goodness.
So, Josh McNerlin Reptiles is here. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Josh. Thanks.
Josh. Steven has asked a question. That's a good one. We'll get to that one after we answer the four we got in. And Patrick Lee is with us. So if you're new here, jump in the chat.
Hey, Patrick.
Say hi. Patrick is here. Excellent, excellent. What we're doing tonight is answering your turtle and tortoise questions. So whether you have a beginner question or a more advanced question, try to stump us. See what we can come up with. But bottom line, we want to help you take care of your turtle and your tortoise the best. So, yeah, Sam, he decided to call me to Turkey Tom. I have no turkeys, and I'll eat a turkey every once in a while. I've never shot.
That's my wife's favorite Jimmy John sandwich is the Turkey Tom.
I tried to go to Jimmy John's today, but the Jimmy John's in University Circle by Case Western Reserve University closed. They closed. Isn't that nuts? Oh,
wow.
I know. They closed. So, Matthew, how are you doing?
Doing well. Not liking this cold weather we've been having, but it's given me some time to spend messing around indoors with my indoor setups and try to figure some things out I'd like to change. I really want to. I listened to your and Ryan's podcast, and I really want to get him and listen to how he has everything automated, and if he has some ideas for things that can make my life a little easier.
So yesterday we came out with the newest episode of the Let's Talk Turtles podcast that I do with Ryan.
It's a good one.
We had the Knob Creek Naturalist on, and I haven't re-listened to it. Normally I listen to it. I just didn't. So we talk a lot about Conyxa and
12, man, or 18.
No, I think he has more. He has like 20.
18 Rosa.
Something.
That's what he had said. Yeah.
Okay. But he is a great guy. Lives in Kentucky and just has a lot to bring to the table. That's a great episode. Check that out on your podcatcher. So, how about we answer some questions and see how far we get? Like I said, welcome. If you have a turtle or tortoise question, put it in the chat. We'll do our best to answer it.
I like Stevens. So how to tell? Yeah. I
ask the questions, you answer them.
Okay, go ahead.
Matthew? How do you tell apart a redfoot and a yellowfoot tortoise?
There's a couple different ways. Obviously, there's the redfoot and yellowfoot, but there are some subspecies of redfoot that actually have yellow feet. The Colombian redfoot.
Right.
So that can make it a little more difficult. Generally speaking, the yellowfoot's going to be a larger species. It's going to get even more wasps than you're going to see the redfoots. And the redfoots do wasp, so the males get that peanut shaped. The biggest thing that I've been told, and I haven't had any yellowfoots. I've had them in the rescue, but the scoots on the head, and I can't remember. The redfoots have 2 scoots on their head, 2 scales, and the yellowfoots, I believe, only have 1. But somebody else in the chat may know exactly how many that is. I believe the redfoot's 2.
You can Google it, but the yellowfoot has less divisions of these scales up front
Yeah.
on their nose, and I don't know.
Yeah, same hit it.
For me, I don't know. I've never been confused, but the redfoot, no matter what locale of redfoot, it's always going to have some very, very dark patterning on the carapace that's dark brown or nearly black. And you never ever see that on a yellowfoot tortoise. It's always a brown to light brown with yellow. It is never ever jet black in my experience. The carapace. Now the skin can be dark, but
I have a friend who actually kind of got taken at an expo. Someone sold him a yellowfoot, telling him it's a hypo redfoot, and
for like thousands of dollars.
No, it was only 400, but that's still way overpriced. So especially, I mean, he has redfoots, he doesn't have yellowfoots, and he was just at the time building his group up. So yeah, it kind of sucked for him.
So that's how we do it. I would love to have yellowfoot someday, but I could say that about any turtle or tortoise.
Yep. Yeah, I could probably have anything too. There's not much out there I don't care for. I mean, I can't think of anything that I'm just like, oh, I don't like that. I'm even Raider sliders, which I always have because people dump them on me. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous turtles. They're fun.
Pet shop.
Turtle. Yeah.
And yeah, it was great. I had a little mat. It was awesome. So, okay, let's answer Sam's question next. This is one that I get quite a bit now that I've fully launched the Two Turtle Tom brand.
Yeah.
How did I come up with that name? Bottom line, I had 2 hinchback tortoises in graduate school, and my buddy, who's from New Jersey, Brian Kelly, he knew that I liked turtles a lot. And Mark says my volume is too. Oh, it is too low. You're right.
Thanks, Mark.
It was down to like 40. Thank you. So he just named me that. Like I had 2 tortoises, 2 hinchbacks, and he's like, "You're Two Turtle Tom." And I had used that moniker a long time on the tortoise forum. And like in the fall of 2021, I decided to switch my YouTube channel and go more broad. And it used to be called like Hinchback Tortoise Central, which was lame.
I remember when it was that.
I used to have this website called Hinchback Tortoise Central in like 2001 when we were doing hingeback stuff on the Yahoo groups. I don't know. Did you ever participate in Yahoo groups?
Oh yeah,
like in the early 2000s. Oh, that's nice.
You got to remember, my wife still has an AOL email address.
I just set up my dad's iPad using his AOL address.
Yeah, your dad, not your wife.
I wonder if my AOL address still works. So.
Yeah,
but that's how I got to Turtle Tom. My friend Brian Kelly, he is the mayor of Seabright, New Jersey.
Wow. Well, thank you.
And he's just fully New Jersey kind of guy. When he named me that, he was also speculating in websites, and he had the web address frogbog.com.
From bog.com.
Frog.
Frog. Okay.
Frogbog.com. Now I wonder what's at frogbog.com right now. Well, probably a Chinese website or something like that. But frogbog.com is for sale for $2,395. So, Brian, if you're out there watching, it was a good name, and
It's
doing
stuck.
doing the rebranding was good for my YouTube channel presence. Because bottom line, I don't want my name to be associated with this stuff. I mean, that sounds horrible, but honestly, I just don't want my boss to look my name up and see more about turtles. And
Good luck.
so, you're not if you Google my name, my real name, you're not going to find a lot of turtle stuff. Believe it or not.
We'll find out. And we can change that too. I have some friends that are pretty savvy. Let's start linking every Google search for Tom Arbor.
I didn't say expert. Savvy people can't do it. Just the average Joe.
Oh, I'm just going to say he's going to change it so that every time somebody searches for your name, Two Turtle Tom's the first thing that pops up.
Harlan's here. Harlan is from South.
Hey, Harlan.
So,
nice.
Okay, Krista is here. Krista has a question for us. Do we have any, and Matthew, I will ask this to you first, then I'll share my ideas. Do you, Matthew, have any unique enrichment ideas you can share for tortoises housed indoors?
Yeah. So on Mondays and Fridays, we do math, science, and gym. No, I'm just kidding. It depends on the species. If I know certain things have a higher prey drive, so like my Spangler Eye or Flavo, pretty much any of the box turtles, I like laser pointers. I think they're fun just as a person. I like to shine them on walls if I'm just sitting here. They're entertaining. So much like Spangler Eye, I suppose. I like just to watch it, and that's what they do. They'll chase it around. I'll throw some bugs in there and let them chase them too. So I'll change it up with different live feeders for those carnivorous ones or those that'll eat it. I'll also kind of hide food if I can. I got the idea from our Kong, our dog, Kong. You put the bone in there and they chew on it forever. So I got one of those wiffle balls. And I do the same thing with fresh greens. I cut some extra out so they can actually get in more. But I fill that up and let it roll around the enclosure where they try to eat stuff out of it. I'll hang different food. I like to see them climb and reach for their food. So I know a lot of other people do as well, but I've got that bird feeder basket, and I'll fill it with fresh greens and then close the cage and hang that, and they'll eat it from above.
So it's like a suet basket.
Yeah.
And it's rectangular. And Chris Leone has a video showing how to do, and you like stuff the greens, and then literally they can reach up and use their mouths and necks to kind of grab onto stuff, just like they would do in nature.
Yeah.
I also do that.
Good. Yeah.
So I do want to ask you about a tortoise enrichment device that I've been seeing pop up on social media. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is it an app that you put on your phone and put in their enclosure?
No.
I'm not aware.
Cool. Okay, so what
Max and I will start working on that.
So people are taking wheels designed for hamsters and mice, and they're adding carpet to the running surface. And I'm seeing videos of like small tortoises using mouse wheels meant for mammals to run around in their cage. Both the rotary wheel, Matthew's like, oh my God, this is a thing. Yeah. And then they have some of these like open ones. So yeah, literally people are doing it.
I've not seen this at all.
Tell us in the chat if you've seen people on social media sharing these photos of their tortoise using a hamster wheel.
I can't believe that's a thing. That's so.
It's totally a thing. You got to Google it when we're done. Please, people, tell me you've seen this. Tell me you've seen this. Come on. Come on.
Tell us you haven't. I want this to be just a Tom thing. That's so they put carpet in it?
Yes. Yeah, they'll put...
Like, how small are we talking here? A little padlock or just...
Yeah. And they do it. They do it. They'll
That's too funny.
Clay, I will get your question on Instagram. So, yeah, isn't that crazy?
A tortoise wheel, yeah. Yeah, it would have to be a big... It'd have to be a big wheel for some of my species. Like, that just... Yeah, that's so strange. I want to see video of it, though. I do, I have to admit. Like, that would be fantastic.
Podrick says he just watched a video of a young redfoot running in a hamster wheel. And then Mike Chan...
I gotta see this.
No worries. Mark De Silva says
it's a chinchilla. Of course Mark knows. Of course Mark knows. Mark. Okay, Mark, can you send me one?
Send him a chinchilla wheel.
I'm sure he's got a discount with those things.
So I mean, this is something
cat size wheel. Patrick says you can get a cat size wheel. Okay. Let's do it. I know I can see the Spangler eye using it. I'll admit.
I mean, just
that's too funny.
So I honest to God, I think this is something we really need to consider as part of tortoise husbandry, because we know tortoises, they're programmed to just walk around and look for food all day.
Right.
Sam and his chinchillas. Okay.
What do you mean you used to, Sam? Are you saying you got rid of them?
Krista, you're welcome. She has bought one of those suet baskets after seeing it, but he hasn't tried it yet. So yeah, give it a try. Stuff some nice greens in there. So okay, let's go up to Phil's question. Phil says, anyone want to talk about lighting? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
He uses a lot of MVB, mercury vapor bulbs, but he's considering a switch to fluorescent with CHE, which is a ceramic heat emitter.
So, Phil, in my opinion, you're probably going to see an increase in price if you switch over, because you're going to be running two things. That mercury vapor is going to be giving you both. So you're going to have to add another fixture. I would love to use MVB all the time. I think it works really great. I think it does better for live plants that you're using in there. You don't have to add any supplemental for them either. But they are expensive. To be honest, as far as lighting goes, depending on the species, I don't give them any UVB, mainly because they're spending all year outside, all summer outside, spring. I know, I'm sure people are going to be nuts, but if I'm moving them in October and I'm taking them back out in late April, I'm fine with that. They get supplemental calcium through some powder dustings. I don't really worry too much about UVB. I have a solar meter. I think it's absolutely imperative that everybody does. I think that's one of those tools that you need as a solid keeper, especially for keeping more than one thing. But I like ZoomEd light bulbs. I like Arcadia light bulbs. I think they make really good products. They offer, as from what I've seen using my solar meter, they offer the best and the most uniformed as far as UVB goes. It's the most uniformed out of there. There's other brands out there, Lucky Herb, something like that, you can get on Amazon, that will throw UVB, but it's just not very consistent. One bulb you'll need to be 3 or 4 inches from the skin. And I think that's another question that we have about where to put the UVB lighting.
Yeah. So a question came on Instagram about saying, for UVB lighting, is the distance that is measured from the bulb to the tortoise, is that the distance from the bulb to the ground or the bulb to the shell?
So something that I think everyone needs to realize right off the get-go, turtles and tortoises do not absorb any UVB or UVA through their carapace. None of their shell allows UVB through it. It just doesn't happen. They have to get that through their skin. Yeah, it's bone. They have to get that through their skin. That's why you're going to see sliders and everything else with their arms and legs splayed out as much as they possibly can. Their head's stuck out. They're absorbing. Yeah.
Even my hingebacks extend their back legs underneath their UVB light. It's the coolest thing.
Yep.
So it's obviously it can be the top of the head, the neck, or the feet. So you want to shoot kind of somewhere in the middle.
I just tell people the top of the soil. That's an inch from where their skin's going to be. So that's where you're going to want to be going with your lights, where you want that sweet spot. So if you have a solar meter, which you should, use that, figure out how high you need to have that light to get the right wavelength, and then put it down there so it's hitting the ground.
Cam says it's absolutely amazing that we're working with hingebacks. It was his first walk into the herp world. One of mine too,
awesome.
And especially tortoises. So thank you, Cam. And
it's awesome, Cam.
And yes, Cam, we do there are lots of captive bred hingebacks available right now.
Yeah.
At turtlesandtortoises.com. All three postings are from Kinexus working group members. So if you would like to work with them again, go to turtlesandtortoises.com. Great animals. Great animals. So
they really are. And I got to tell you, I noticed, I've complained quite a bit about my Homiana kind of being pet rocks. Because over the first year, they really never even came out. I mean, they just hid in their hides. But it seems like over the last 2 months, maybe, like they know it's me, and now they expect it every time they see me. So it's getting a lot more enjoyable with them. So that's, I got to be honest, that's a species that I almost gave up keeping just because I was so bummed out with them. They were so shy. So lesson learned: give things some time before you decide not to work with them, because they can become pretty cool before you know it. There's a lot of people get into things and get out of things. But I think if they gave things more time, they would stick with it, because they end up being really cool tortoises.
They're awesome. For my hingebacks, I am now exclusively using Arcadia T5 UVB lights. I've tried everything, and in the end, I find those Arcadia systems to work really well. The bulbs last a ton. A very long time. I also have a solar meter 6.5R to measure the bulbs with, but I use, for the adults, a combination of a halogen bulb for the UVBA and infrared, and the Arcadia. So what I notice is that I can raise up a turtle for 2 or 3 years, or tortoise, without UVB. They alternately can have UVB. Don't need it. They can get it with the food, but I give it to all my animals now because they just seem to respond better, and they're more seems to be more natural behaviors when I have UVB light with them. So.
Well, and one thing I wanted to bring up, and going to Krista's comment, she switched to Arcadia from Zoomed. I like Arcadia and I like Zoomed. I will say Zoomed's warranty is better, and they take care of you a little easier. There's a 2-year warranty on any of their lights. Most people don't realize that. So if it stops measuring UV on your solar meter, send it back. Get a replacement. You can't beat that. Yeah. So I mean, you're getting 2 years per light bulb then. And when I learned that, I stopped kind of buying light bulbs.
Yeah.
At those kind. Now for the heat.
Call them too. You can actually talk to someone at Zoomed, and
that's one thing I really like. Their customer service is fantastic.
Yeah.
For heat bulbs, people can can laugh at me. They're actually listed on Amazon as a UVB UVA source. They're not at all, but they're small. They come in 25, 50, 75, and 100 watt. But they're perfect for smaller stuff and hatchlings. You can go down to a 25 watt bulb where you're only wanting to heat that one little area, and they're dirt cheap. It's like $8 for 12 of them. You really can't beat the price. They don't last near as long as some others out there, but when you're spending less than $1 a light, you can afford to store. And when they're really small, you can afford to store up.
Cool. Okay, let's answer Dan's question. So Dan says, if they, meaning turtles, have a brumation period naturally where they hide in the dry period or a cold period, are they really getting sun anyways for that period?
Yeah.
What's the answer?
That's an excellent point. No, they're not, but they're also not using any stored energy. They're not using any excess energy. It's just going off what they have stored. And they're really kind of in a suspended animation. So there's the argument you're going to get from some people out there, is, well, yeah, they don't need it if they're brumating because they're not active. They're not doing anything. But if a turtle is active, then they need to have UVB. I just don't think that's necessarily the case. I think we probably give them too much UVB on the regular anyway. Most people, I think they're having their UVB light on way too much during the day. They're not going to get that in the wild. They're going to be hiding, especially hatchlings. You're going to have the basking species that are always sun loving, but the majority of younger ones you're never going to see. You're not going to see them out basking. You'll see a slider, but
he uses MVB now. What I hear about MVB, and I've used mercury vapor bulbs. I actually have a mercury vapor bulb that's no longer producing any UVB, but I bought that thing in 2018, and it is still going strong.
Yeah, still use the heat though.
Which infrared and probably creating UVA, emitting UVA still, but the challenge with MVB, and I think it's even more so for reptiles that really like to bask under the lights, but it can be difficult to get the temperature and the UVB level correct, right? Because it at the right temperature, the reptile might need to be so far away from the bulb that they're not getting any UVB light. So that's why the reptile lighting group doesn't recommend MVBs.
That's one reason I like the T5 and the T8 bulbs, because they will cover the length of the enclosure, and it's not a huge heat source, so they will be absorbing that. When they're out and not having to bask. So there's definitely benefits to both. Only having one source for that, but if it's a basking loving species, the mercury vapor bulbs are fantastic. They're going to be spending their time on there. And as long as the heat's correct for where your UVs are picking up, as the light ages, you're going to have to drop the bulb for the UVB. And if that heats up the area too much, then it's going to make the light obsolete.
Yep.
Dan had a question.
That's a good question. Okay, so Dan loves, I think he means, loves musk turtle habits. Do you think if I grew out a strong carpet of Vallisneria, which is a long, stringy aquatic plant native to Eastern North America, and gave enough small crevices for grass shrimp to hide out and breed, that it would survive the turtle habits? What do you think about live plants and aquatic turtles, Matthew?
I think it absolutely depends on the species, and even more than that, it depends on the individual turtle that's in there. I've got some that I've got some spotted turtle that I'm raising up, and one of them just will not stop eating anything I put in there. Every single live plant that goes in there, it demolishes. That said, do I think the shrimp could survive and breed? Yeah, depending on the size of the enclosure and how many musk turtles you have in there. Obviously, if you've got a 50-gallon enclosure and you've got 30 musk turtles, you're not going to get those things to live. But if it's a large enough tank and the musk turtles aren't too plentiful, then yeah, that definitely, there's a lot of people out there that breed shrimp and snails and everything else inside their enclosures. So yeah, I think it's a great idea. I would absolutely, with it being a natural or a native plant to the Northeast, I think that would be an awesome thing to do. I think they would love it.
Yeah, and I've never seen anybody.
What's that?
It's work. You can try, but they just eat the plants, and it's just really hard. And they root them up, and
now my musks don't mess with the plants. That's one nice thing. So
I would challenge anyone to show me a turtle aquarium where they've had success for like over a year with live plants. I want to know what their secret is. It's just very, very hard.
The secret is having a separate tank that just grows the plants.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you supplementally take it out of there, because that's how I do it. But I look at it as a food source. That's why I don't feel bad about it. I would rather them be eating the natural plants and the duckweed and the frog bit and the hyacinth and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, a question came from Midwest Turtle Bro on Instagram, and I'll answer this with a statement that next week we're going to devote the whole episode to this. But Midwest Turtle Bro says, "Can we hear some of your thoughts on Tink, TINC, which stands for tortoise, or it stands for Testudo intranuclear coccidiosis. Specifically Tink with connexus. How do you know when you're going overboard with treatment, and at what point do you allow them to be passive carriers?" So we're going to answer that question next week with an entire episode. But you can allow them to be passive carriers, but they're going to be in permanent quarantine for the rest of their life if you keep other turtles and tortoises. Because the moment another species gets it, look out, they're going to die quickly, most likely. So that's my best advice to you.
It's the same thing if I come across a Russian with Testudo herpes virus. It's not something. I have 6 of them that I keep in a separate area of the entire yard. They have a complete cover over them. There's no birds getting in there to peck at anything and bring anything out. They're going to live out their life in those enclosures. They brumate out there all year. I just drop food and drop water in. I wish it could be a better life for them. But the risk of them spreading that is just too great for me to, feel comfortable, messing with them very much. So they generally don't. I've not had any silent carriers live an extremely long time. I don't know why. They just never seem to make it. Something happens, I think, inside of them, and it just wrecks their immune system, and they don't fight other things off. Or their immune system so, tired from fighting off that so much. They just,
So next week, we're going to have Aaron back on the show, Aaron Johnson.
Yeah.
And he is going to tell us all about his experience with Bell's Hinchbacks and Tink. I'm excited. So, okay, Cam has an interesting question. Anyone see people working with blandings, wood turtle crosses? So we know of one.
Yeah.
It's a famous turtle called Indominus Jim. And Indominus Jim is a Blandings wood turtle hybrid. It's currently in the care of Chris Leone of Garden State Tortoise. So you can,
Yeah.
he actually just uh, talked about Indominus Jim in his videos. Like he was messing around with, I forget, he thinks he's a wood turtle or he thinks he's a Blandings turtle. I
Think
forget which.
thinks he's a wood turtle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he like attacks all his other wood turtles. Chris
But
had
he
me,
doesn't mind the blandings.
yeah, he's like Blandings, whatever. And the red dragon is the hybrid between what
Geomyda
japonica
japonica and
and
Coriflava
some,
macchiato.
okay, oh yeah, it's an intergeneric hybrid. That's crazy. So
Well, so the cool thing about the red dragons is they're cold hardy. They can take really cold temperatures. Flavos blow my mind with how cold they can take it. Mine stay out year round, and they, wake up, right next to my wood turtles, thinking, "Hey, you guys ready to party?" Um, and they're a lot of fun. The hybrid Blandings wood turtle cross, Jim Harding, I believe, still has
so
some.
that's where
Um,
Indominus Jim came from, right? I mean,
yeah,
Dave,
yeah,
I think David had him, named him after Jim Harding, who's a herpetologist in Michigan.
yeah. Um, and then I think there's another person in New Jersey. I don't know if he wants me sharing his name, but Jersey's a small state. You can probably figure it out.
There's like
Um,
three turtle people.
you're right.
That's like,
There's another
what's so
person
weird
out there.
about New Jersey is you cannot sell a turtle to
I
someone
know,
in
in New Jersey.
you live in New Jersey. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like three big turtle
right.
outfits in New Jersey at least.
Yeah,
So that's funny.
a lot of poaching up there too.
Um,
Um,
there used to be. Okay, so Hardshell Herps asks Matthew a follow up. How can one tell when a tortoise or turtle has the herpes virus?
there's for Testudo, they're going to show up. A lot of times they're going to have a gasping, but they're not going to close. They're just going to keep their mouth open. They're going to start getting sores. You're going to see them inside their mouth, and that's going to pretty much coat the throat going down. They'll get puffy eyed. It'll look similar to an upper respiratory infection, but there's no snot dribbles. Um, there's generally no bubbles coming out of the nose and no drips. You're going to see a lot of mucus build up, and then they'll start foaming, building up foam on the side of their mouth. And at that point, I've never seen one come back after it starts to foam. I mean, I've only seen 6 survive even being diagnosed, and those are the 6 that I've got. So it's generally fatal. Those guys lucked out.
And Dan the Turtle Man had some issues with herpes virus in his
Going to his
Diamondback
Diamondback Terrapins.
that he thinks just they acquired perhaps wild.
Yeah. And that's why I have the cage over mine, because I'm fearful that even a bird coming in and eating something on the ground, or a worm that they find in one of their enclosures, and then comes and poops, and it's just not worth it. I glove up every time I walk over near that enclosure. So yeah, and it's set up that it's just, I can't emphasize isolation, quarantine enough, and we're going to hear a lot about that next week with Aaron. But yeah, you just when I hear these 1 week quarantines, or even a 1 month quarantine, I just kind of, it's cringe to me. I just can see so many bad things happening. I do a 6 month or 1 year quarantine. The 1 year may be a little much, but I think you see a lot after brood mating. I think a lot of things will show up that the turtle or tortoise had that it may have been able to hide up until that point, and after you brood mate them, some of that stuff comes out, and oops, well, I'm glad I didn't mix them. So and I'll quarantine a year. I'll brood mate them, wake them up that spring, so it's over a year. But I think it's the safest way to go with stuff that's wild caught and that's known to spread stuff. That's my routine.
Absolutely. So we have some questions that came in to my Instagram account. Various people have asked me over the past week and things like that. And I thought this was a pretty cool question, Matthew. It's very in depth. I'll read it. But basically, the question is, how much money should you save before you're going to buy a turtle? And I think it'd be kind of cool to work through some of that. So, hey there, I'm new to turtles, but I was hoping to get a good starter turtle. I have $600 total budget for the turtle and supplies. Do you have anything you recommend, or should I keep saving? Do I need to keep saving? I would like a little bit bigger of a turtle if possible. Can I buy just one, or do they need a buddy? Please let me know. Thanks. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay. So what most people probably don't realize when they think about Albuquerque is it gets really cold there. It's really high elevation, and their temperatures can drop, and they can get really cold at night. Sandy Barnett lives out there, and she fills me in a lot on what she goes through with her. She's got box turtles, but $600 you can definitely do it. It really depends on how creative you are, and how much work you want to put into it, and then what species you ultimately want to work with. There are some species out there $600 isn't even going to get you in the door. Not a hatchling, not nothing. So unless you're
just for the turtle, you couldn't buy
right. But if you're
starter turtle, a bigger starter turtle.
A bigger starter turtle, if I was to recommend somebody living in Albuquerque, I would probably go with a marginated, or possibly an elongated. Elongated handles pretty good, colder temps. I think both are very interesting, very personable tortoises. I think
what about a turtle for Albuquerque? He didn't. I mean, he did say turtle, but I think those are good tortoise.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think about that. So honestly, if I was him, I would go with a Tough Stuff 180-gallon tank. You can get those pretty inexpensive. I would spend the money on a good filter, or I wouldn't. I would build my own. I would do a 5-gallon bucket filter. I would do an up filter. So you're going to run the water to the bottom of the 5-gallon bucket, have it disperse out there, and then filter up through all your media. You can plant hostas in there, but pothos, that does a good job of filtering more of it out. So if you're going to go aquatic, that's what I would go with. You can use egg crates, as steps and stuff like that. Light diffuser. To have a basking area. You can do those pretty inexpensively. I would do a sand substrate on the bottom. Definitely give them something to dig into. Live plants if you can. And then aquatic turtles generally aren't as expensive. You can find those pretty cheap. And if you want something bigger, you can go with a red ear slider. They're fantastic turtles. They get a little bigger. But they're very personable. They get to know you, and they love coming up for food. So if you're wanting to get into them and just experience what it's like to have an aquatic turtle, do a red ear slider if you've got the space. 180-gallon would be perfect for them. They would absolutely love that. Most of them are probably going to be coming from a 40-gallon.
Are some female red ear sliders that need homes?
Yeah, I can contact me. I can send you some.
Matthew. Well, that was pretty good. Yeah, I think what's so nice about tortoises is that they don't have that barrier to entry that a water turtle might have. But if you DIY the water turtle enclosure, you build your own filter, you build your own basking structure, and you go with a tub for stock animals. Now you can't see through that, but that's the cheap way to go into aquatic turtles. If you want to set up a red ear slider, you're talking 125-gallon aquarium. That's $1,000 with the stand-up.
Yep.
So, here's an interesting question that just came up in the chat from Aaron. Aaron, welcome. Are there axanthic or melanistic Russian tortoises? I have searched for pictures to no avail. Well, Aaron, we have the right guy to ask that question. Matthew, what do you think?
I have heard. I've never seen pictures. I've heard of both. There are some. Um, the Rostamavi, they will at times come out almost solid black, and their scoots are really dark. Every
And
single one has.
if Aaron doesn't know, there are 5 different extant subspecies of Russian
Yeah.
tortoises. They look a little different. We have a whole video.
Yeah.
Check the archives where Matthew brings each Russian tortoise subspecies out, and that one species can be very, very dark, almost
Yeah.
like a bowling ball with just a little bit of kind of greenish yellow between the scoop.
And I've hatched some out in the past where, I thought they were, melanistic. This is really cool. It's going to be black, and then they eventually start getting color, and they fade out. But I have had some. I have had some that. So the southern Horsfieldy, they can almost be completely golden. And a lot of times people look at those and they'll be lighter colored in general, and people will think those are hypo or leucistic, but they're not. I've never seen any true in person. I've heard of some. I think some in Europe they may have some leucistic, but I don't know. I mean, unless I see it in person, it's going to be really hard for me to tell, what's what. And I just like with like albino red ear sliders, those are all, or is it the other way? Albino yellow bellied sliders, all of them have red ear slider in it, or all of the albino yellow bellied. One of the two, but the albino has both, and because of that, I don't know how pure it would be, or if they're mixing other genes. There are some people have got some albino marginated, and actually somebody here in the United States just got some leucistic marginated, and they call them caramel marginated. They're really cool. I've seen those in person. Those are pretty cool. I'm really hoping those turn out to be really cool. They don't have the black chevrons. They're like a brown chevron.
Wow.
It's definitely muted. It's really cool.
Interesting. Is someone running water in the background?
Yeah, let me shut that door real quick.
Oh, albino first showed up in red ears. There's actually probably T plus albino Holmes hingebacks. They're of course a few have been imported. I don't know who owns those now, but there's actually even one on iNaturalist that is a T plus albino.
Wild?
Yeah, wild.
What?
I'll show it to you. But because it's kind of, those are sort of lighter colored tortoises anyways.
Yeah.
It's difficult to recognize it, but when you look at the fingernails, just like a bearded dragon, they're really, really light, and they're not normal at all.
Yeah.
Dawson's here. Hey, Dawson.
Hey, Dawson.
So, Hardshell Herps says...
Yeah, the albino eastern
black eyes, are they considered a true albino? I mean, there is different forms of albinism, and
right.
So one of the basic levels of albinism is what they call T positive or T negative, and so the tyronase is some enzyme or something like that. If they're T plus albinos, that's often an albino that will have dark eyes. They have this certain protein, and if it's a true albino, they're T negatives, and that's what we typically think of as an albino. And then anything else, as you add different pigments and colors, they have various different names. And there's no standard consistent way of naming these morphs biologically. It varies from species to species and genes. So that's that question. Tony Monahan, mostly red ears. Dawson says he's albino.
Pretty much.
Maybe he is a T plus.
T plus, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know if they're people. These same terms apply for people. So. Podrick says
Podrick, that sucks.
his buddy had an albino caught in a local pond. Unfortunately, that's horrible. Sorry, Patrick.
They've got albinos in Hawaii. Albino red ear sliders.
Wild?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I talked to some of the locals that have seen them.
No predators.
Yeah.
You may have saw that Will Espenshade and I did a collab on a video this week of shorts, and I had someone ask me if they have any tips for their Russian tortoise. So Russian tortoises, the most popular tortoise perhaps in the country. What are your top tips for Russian tortoises, Matthew?
Whew. Food. They're very food driven. Everyone I've ever had has been food driven. But they don't do well on store-bought lettuce. They do best on, high fiber content weeds. Timothy hay works well. Make sure you're giving them an enclosure that drains well. They don't do well with sitting water. They seem to definitely be more susceptible to upper respiratory infections when they're kept damp. So definitely a well-drained soil, but also give them enough area where they're going to dig down. These guys love to burrow. These guys love to dig. Most of the time, they're not even going to go into their hides or their cold frames. They're just going to find their spot in the enclosure that they like, and they're going to go there every single night, and they're going to dig down, and they just cover their carapace up with dirt, and that's where they stay. So they kind of have their own built-in. As long as the soil's good enough, they have their built-in hide there. So yeah, definitely give them deep enough substrate. If you're going to keep them inside, I almost tell people if you're going to keep them inside, get 110 or 180 gallon tough stuff so that you can fill it up with quite a bit of substrate, so that they can dig down underneath it, still have some good height so they don't climb out. But that's the other thing, they will climb. They'll climb up. If they can get their little claws in between it, they'll find a way of arching up and getting over. So yeah, they're deceivingly good climbers. And then just enjoy them. Feed them on a routine basis, so they know when you're going to be there. I like to I feed in this red bucket, and every time I've got some pellets in the bottom of it. I'll usually have the leafy greens or the mulberry leaves and stuff piled on top. But as I shake it, they hear that and they all start coming out because they know that sound. They know what that is. They're very personable. I mean, they'll know you and they'll come right up to you. So yeah, that's my advice for horsevilly or Russians.
So while you were talking about that, and thank you, Dan had this to say. He had a customer bring in an albino eastern box turtle they got in their yard, and a breeder found their pic on Facebook and bought it. So, Dan, that was buku illegal. You can't sell any wild collected eastern box turtles in the state of Ohio. And Dan also said that was
hopefully it was a long time ago.
Coffee.
It was a long time ago.
More than 20 years ago. But,
ours was 2000. Ours was 2004. That's when you could stop collecting box turtles out of the wild in Indiana.
Yeah, ours was like never, I don't think. But 2000 was when our reptile regulations went into effect. So,
okay.
Sean McZoo and Eliza Ann, but my chameleon buddies have joined us. So thank you.
Hey guys.
Thank you. And then Dawson dropped the bomb on us here, and there's been a lot of discussion. So, and I think this is a good question. What we can do is talk about the Plowshare Tortoise and say, what are the possibilities? And people started talking about it, and so let's talk about the Plowshare. It's essentially functionally extinct in the wild. There's less than 100 animals living, or something like that.
Yeah.
Really, really.
No, there's probably more than 100 living. I mean, in the wild, only 100, but there's more than that living total.
Let's see what Wikipedia says.
I mean, I see enough videos from Asia, and they have like 13 hatchlings they're raising up, various different sizes, and they're gorgeous. I'm so jealous. I don't know what the status of the plowshare in Europe, but I mean Asia we could definitely acquire captive bred from.
So, is it on the endangered species list? The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service endangered species list. I don't think it is, but it is CITES Appendix 1. And so when animals are listed as CITES Appendix 1, that means they're not going to get imported into the country by private individuals. It would be only public institutions.
Yeah.
Now, for example, just today, I had a conversation with one of my team members at work, and we are applying for our scientific CITES exemption. So,
nice.
We would be able
That's
to
awesome.
CITES 1 animals, and that's how zoos can acquire CITES 1 animals. So then the next question is it on the U.S. Endangered Species Act? Is it listed? I don't know. If it
I don't know either.
And I'm going to try to find that real quick. I mean, it's certainly listed as federally endangered.
Right.
I'm sorry. I mean, critically endangered by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. But I don't know if it's actually on the U.S. endangered species list. So, if it isn't, that means it would be able to be bought and sold across state lines. But yeah, let me do a little more looking. And then,
Tony, Baylor Center also has some.
And so, if the only way that so only institutions can bring them into the country, and only institutions, as far as we know, own them right now in the country.
Yeah.
And so those institutions would have to sell or give away their babies to private individuals. And currently, they're not even producing them, are they?
I believe Baylor has hatched some.
Yeah, and so these things are so rare. There's no way that a zoo is going to give them to the private sector. They're just not.
Hey, if Eric Good wants to win some good, if he wants to win some favors in the community, he can always gift those out. I mean, I'll take some.
Yeah, so the Tortoise Conservancy owns some, and they would, if they're producing them, they would have to gift them. And so that's your job, Dawson. Become really good friends with Eric and convince him to give you some.
Yeah, he'll just end up getting screwed if he does that. Just become bigger than Eric, Dawson. You have it in you. Become bigger and better than Eric, and don't be a prick.
Oh,
Mike, so they're down to one. I only saw one when I was there. The Honolulu Zoo's down to one plowshare. So when I was there, they were actually cohabiting it with the radiata. And I was hoping they had more somewhere else. But, dang. That sucks.
Well, so there's
They had a whole group at one point, didn't they? They had like 7 or 8.
Would we ever be able to classify one person as a scientific institution? Why can we give courses and classes and tests for licenses to be considered? I don't.
An institution can be one person.
Why can't we give courses and classes and tests? I mean, Eric Good essentially owns Plowshare Tortoises.
Yeah.
He has a nonprofit organization that he controls, but that nonprofit organization has a board and everything like that. Dawson, you can create your own nonprofit and be just like Eric. Although I don't know that the Tortoise Conservancy is a 501c3. It might.
I believe it is.
But
I mean, Hoosier Turtle and Tortoises is an institution. A
Exactly.
corporation. Yeah.
Matt, a nonprofit, 501c3. So Matthew could apply for a CITES exemption and try to export some Angora plowshare tortoises.
I'll get
How do
Chris
you say that?
Hagen. I'll get Chris
Angora.
Hagen to write me a letter of recommendation.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so, one of the animals that people talk a lot about is these Fiji banded iguanas and how they're
Yeah.
illegal to own in the country. They're not illegal to own. It's just that there aren't any in private hands. It's illegal to import them. It's illegal to sell them across state lines, but they're not technically illegal to own.
Bearded dragons are too. Well, to ship into the country.
Yeah, Australia does not legally let never one
has.
bearded dragon was legally exported from Australia ever. So
And look how many we have.
Dawson's got a vision now. So yes, Dawson, you create. I mean, essentially, create an institution and an organization. And I mean, one of my big thesis here is that the TTPG, working through its members, could do stuff like this, private ex situ conservation, but organized through the TTPG. So,
well, I mean, if you talk to Russ and if you talk to Russ and something he'll say is, they would love to eventually have a place like the Turtle Survival Center that the TSA has. But they have to have the land. They have to have a person that's willing to dedicate themselves to doing that. And that'll require, a salary. And that's not something that the TSA started out with. They eventually got to that point. And yes, the TSA and the TTPG started at the same time. But they had different mission. Their mission was different for a long time. So I know Russ would like to do that, and I think eventually that will happen, and that'll give them a lot more leeway to bring in really cool freaking species like that. And hopefully we can get some Sylvatica the same way. Because an individual like me, even if I was to petition for a CITES exemption, I'm not going to get it. I would be very surprised if an individual like me in a small little rescue got it. And Dawson, word of advice, don't call it a rescue. Call it a nonprofit breeding facility for preservation. Be honest from the start. Just say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I think that could do a lot. And, if they know that you're a breeding facility for preservation, that may also aid, I don't know, maybe hurt you. But, I think if that's the intention from the get-go. Raul, you may know, you're pretty good at importing. What would it be to bring in some, you won't. What would it be to bring in some plowshares?
Hardshell Herb says he just moved to Northwest Indiana. I think that's what that means. Or Northwest Indianapolis. Is it Northwest Indianapolis or Northwest Indiana? I'm on some of the Hoosier Herp groups on Facebook. But is there any cool turtle clubs?
If it's Northwest Indiana, you can check out the Fort Wayne Herp Society. That's going to probably be the closest. If it's Northwest Indianapolis, the Hoosier Herpetological Society is pretty decent. They've got monthly meetings at Holiday Park, which is pretty cool. Gary, Indiana. Oh no, that's Sam. But as far as that, and as far as turtles, Northwest Indiana. Okay. Yeah, Fort Wayne would be the best. Maybe South Bend Herp Society. But and it may be different up there, but down here our Herp Society is pretty much all snakes. Everyone there just wants to love snakes. You lived in West. Were you at Purdue, Mr. Gonzalez? My wife lived there for 4 years. Yeah, West Lafayette's home to Purdue University.
Nguyen says, do you know if we can buy radiated eggs from different states? So he's saying, can I buy an egg of an endangered species across state lines?
Nope. You can't even buy a dead specimen. So there's no purchase of any. You can't buy the shell of a dead radiata across state lines. Work for State Farm. So yeah, I wish there was a way of getting around it. If the egg thing could work, we could all call up Randy Betts and figure out how to do that and get them shipped. But it's just not the case. So
Eliza, our chameleon friend, says she didn't know turtle clubs were a thing. How cool! So this is our own little turtle club.
yeah,
Thursday
yeah.
nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. But they have been for a long time. There was a New York. There still is the New York Turtle and Tortoise Club. California has a whole network of turtle and tortoise clubs, and there's various
Mid-Atlantic
ones.
Turtle and Tortoise
Yeah.
Society, Mats.
Yep. So people love turtles.
What's not to love?
And when I told Bill Strand of the Chameleon Academy when I was on Sean's podcast or Sean's live with Bill, I'm like, because he asked me about how many species are regularly available. I'm like, about 100. And that just blew his mind. So
yeah, I actually got asked this week to.
Pets.
Yeah, I'm doing a new school the 21st of the month. No, 30th. Sorry, Tuesday the 30th.
That's fun.
The whole it's family science night is what it's called,
Okay.
and they want somebody there with animals to talk to them about. So I'm gonna bring a bunch of cool stuff and show all the kids some cool turtles. Get them obsessed with turtles and tortoises.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, the last question that I have from Instagram is, when will I try to ground hatch some eggs in my enclosure? And
I'm trying right now.
Are you? Okay,
I've decided
let's
to
talk
leave
about
them.
it. With Homiana?
Yep.
What's your temperature of your substrate?
The substrate's 75. I mean, it's between 76 and 74, but generally about
Where
75.
the eggs are? They're that hot?
What's that?
They'll if the eggs will develop on that temperature.
Yeah.
In that temperature, no problem. My substrate's really cool.
Is
in
it?
The 60s. It's in the 60s.
Oh, I keep my rooms. They're on the ground, but my room's 80, 82. So they stay. It stays pretty warm.
Yeah. So I just don't think I will ever try that in my current setup in the basement. If I had them upstairs, maybe I might try to ground hatch them, but I don't have any plans to do it. I'll put them in the incubator and let them ride. I have my first clutch of Nogui in the incubator, and this is the first year that I've had constant eggs for over a year.
That's awesome.
No break.
I came about that because I was trying to dig them out. I don't know how many there are for sure because I busted the first egg trying to dig it out. So I removed it and I decided I'm not messing with them anymore. I'm going to see what they can do where they're at with some benign neglect. So we'll see. I've got a Miss King system on them. So the soil stays where it should be. I mean, there's no reason, especially, if Ryan can do it, come on.
Ryan hatched 9.
Yeah.
Ground hatched 9 Homiana with using the benign neglect method. He didn't even know there were eggs.
I know. Well, and that's my fear. I don't know if I may have missed some nests, and now I've got a couple different nests right on each other because where I hit the egg wasn't where I saw her digging. So.
They're sneaky.
Well, and I don't want to keep digging and then bust them or mess them up. And
yeah. I think that's a pretty good strategy.
It's got 9 inches of soil, so it's deep enough.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think this worked out pretty well. We had a lot of good questions come in, and I think we had a lot of new people. So
Yeah.
Thank you for
Hard
joining us.
hard shell herps. Hit me up on Facebook. I'd love to chat with you. I've got some friends up that way I can connect you with that are turtle nerds.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had another turtle person that lives in Cleveland invite me to check out their turtle collection this week.
Nice. I love finding people that I can within driving distance.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's Southern Indiana or Northern Indiana. If they're in driving distance,
yeah.
that's just exciting.
So
All right, Trevor. Oh, okay. Yeah.
If you guys want to meet up ever, my meetup spot is the Medina or Northeast Ohio, or it's called the All Cleveland Reptile Show.
All Cleveland Reptile Show
once a month, but we have a lot of local shows.
So with Trevor, I'm gonna go ahead and invite myself into what you guys were talking about on the podcast with grouping together to buy some things and meet up centrally located, and I'll definitely do that. I'll jump in on a couple pallets of food and stuff like that.
Sean Fleming snuck in.
What's up, Sean? Hey, Sean has some more elongated eggs. He's knocking it out of the freaking park with those things.
So heat under the enclosure, to up the ambient heat, I have no problem, and it certainly would help my eggs that are incubating. But I also have like 8 inches or 10 inches of substrate, so
yeah,
it would have to be really big.
Same. Now I do use their seedling mats, but I use them on a thermostatically controlled, control unit. So. And it's just that it's ambient. I'm putting it at 75 to 78, maybe 80 degrees tops. I've never done it 80 degrees actually. So yeah, I mean, it's taking that chill off the bottom. It's not offering them any substantial heat. But yeah, I'm not against using those just on the controller. I've seen people use those without a controller, and it just overheats the entire thing. And yeah, I'm to go along with the podcast that you guys are talking about. I'm much more fearful of heat than I am cold.
Yep.
I've had things die from heat. I haven't had anything die from cold. And I've left things out all year in Indiana where they froze solid. So I'm definitely think they can take.
Yeah, Podrick says he uses
78
plant heat mats. I also like plant heat mats. I think they're a little warmer than 78, but at least the ones I got. So
the ones that I have are preset to 78, but I don't trust it. So I always put it onto a thermostat.
Josh says, "What's a good breeding weight for female Erosa?" They'll probably lay eggs at 600 grams. I wouldn't want mine.
Really?
Yeah. I probably wouldn't want mine laying until at least 800 to 1,000.
Yeah, that's what I was going to guess. The male Erosa that I sent Sean, that thing's big. I mean, he's over 12 inches. Or about 12 inches.
Male Erosas get bigger than female.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Homiana is the opposite. But I would love to work with Erosa someday. So. But
nice.
I would love, name a turtle, and I will say I would love to work with that turtle someday.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Matthew. Parting thoughts.
Oh, keep at it, guys. Share the videos, hit the like.
Thumbs up.
We appreciate you guys immensely. It's a lot of fun getting all the different questions and hearing different things from different people and getting new guests on. I'm excited about different people we're gonna have on. I'm really excited about Aaron next week. He's a sharp guy. He's a real sharp guy.
The commitment he has shown towards these bells and tracks is pretty incredible.
Yeah. He needs commended for that just on its own.
Before we do our sign off, I just want to remind you to go buy your cat wheel tonight.
Yes.
Order it from Amazon.
Mark De Silva, let's talk.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Remember why we do this. We do it for the turtles.
For the turtles.
And have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week with Aaron Johnson,
Yep.
talking about Bell's Hinchback and Tink.
Tink.
We'll see you next week.